Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Chairman of Monmouthshire County Council.
Before we start the council meeting, I'd like, if you would, to stand in silence for a minute or so for the victims of the Paris shootings. Also for Margaret Coates, former councillor here on Monmouthshire County Council, who died a week or so ago. And I've just heard that in the explosion in the steelworks at Cardiff, someone from Caldecott has been killed. So if we could remember all those people, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? Councillor Down?
Yes, Chairman. It's Councillor Howarth, Councillor Blakeborough, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Marshall.
Thank you. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Councillor Phil Hobson and Councillor Doug Edwards.
Thank you. Councillor Petruni.
Councillor Kevin Williams, Councillor Armand Watts.
Thank you very much. Second item is the public open forum. Well, I don't think there is anything there. The Chairman's report and petitions. There are no petitions, but I hope you've read my report. And no questions? Good. Declarations of interest. Well, I've got a special announcement to make. We have got an item 6C on the agenda. It's not agendaed here, but it's concerning the Velathon. If you remember, at the previous council meeting, it was agreed that should certain assurances be received, that we bring it back to this meeting and approve the Velathon travelling through Monmouthshire. So we'll be discussing that under item 6C. Because of that, I'll declare an interest, as I did at the previous meeting. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Yes, I will declare on the Velathon, Chairman.
Councillor Sarah Jones.
Item 6.2, personal prejudicial interest due to nature of my employment.
Thank you very much. Item 5, to confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I've noted a number of errors in the minutes, some quite significant ones, and I'm not 100% certain how they've managed to pass through all the levels of scrutiny. I fully understand that it's quite tricky to take minutes over a very, very long period, but I'm surprised that, for example, Councillor Petruni's motion is noted as the motion is 1 in the minutes. I'm just going to scroll down to the page, sorry. Have you found that? I can't find the page now. Sorry? Page 6. Sorry? So Councillor Petruni's motion, I'm sure he'd like to think that his motion was 1, but the motion was actually lost, but it's recorded as 1. And there are, I think, quite a few omissions, I would say. Again, it was an incredibly long meeting, but as I would have anticipated that particular error might have been picked up prior to it being sent out into the public domain. Under the motion regarding the Velathon, I thought we did have quite a long debate, and one of the things we asked to be added and noted was that organisers look at whether there was a possibility of the Velathon, rather than simply passing through Monmouthshire, start and finish, or start and or finish in Monmouthshire. I don't notice that that's noted at all. And on the corporate parenting item, we had a specific debate around the fact that there was an inability to secure any placements at all for looked after children. And I specifically asked that the cabinet member take that away and have a look at it. And they agreed. There's no record of that at all in the minutes either. And additionally, none of those matters are reflected in the action sheet. So can I ask that there is a better level of scrutiny before it reaches the public domain in future? Thank you.
Thanks very much. I couldn't comment on the Velathon because I'd left the meeting at that stage. Oh, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. Just a general point. I noticed that for the last couple of meetings, there have been problems with the minutes. People have stated that they didn't agree with them. And then a note is added onto the minutes saying that the minutes will be altered in line with Council's views. Could the Chairman tell me when the minutes are altered, and do they go back and actually alter the minutes that are on the website? I tried to check that myself before this meeting, but in fact you have to go back to June before you can actually find a copy of the minutes of this council. The minutes for September, the minutes for August are not yet posted on the website, so it's hard to change. But do we go back, and when we ask for corrections to be made and agreed by council, are the actual minutes altered, or do we just note them in the minutes beforehand? Because if we just note them in the next minutes, anybody checking will not think to look forward to see if there were any alterations made. So if you could just clarify that point, at what point are they altered, and which documents are actually altered when alterations are asked for?
Perhaps Sarah would answer.
If I can just to clarify for members, the minutes, so today you're approving the minutes of the September meeting, and any alterations will be included in the minutes of today. So we don't change the minutes, the previous minutes. All alterations are dealt with in the subsequent meetings, and that's the same case for every single meeting.
Chair, if I can come back on that then, that means that if anybody is looking for research or looking at the minutes of a meeting, so say for instance you wanted to know what happened in the meeting in June, you look at that and the minutes that you're reading may not necessarily be correct. You have to go forward in time and look at the minutes for August to see that the minutes in June are actually correct. And that can't be right. People expect to go back perhaps if it's noted in the minutes that alterations have been made, but you cannot expect people to look forward when they're doing research or when they're trying to find out what's actually minuted.
In terms of your point, I think that's a fair point. I think we'll have a think about that. But I do think I concede that. I think that's fair. I think my memory, rather than any sort of notes, your point in terms of Councillor Petruni's motion is accurate. That would be changed. My memory on the Velathon was that there was a conversation and a discussion which involved at some future point we would be keen to see a start and finish in Monmouthshire. I don't believe the motion was amended, but I'll have to get Sarah to check her records on that. But it certainly did feature in the conversation. And again, I see the point that you make about your own personal comment. I think that's right.
Councillor Webb.
I wish to carry on this conversation, but in my view, I have. Today's meeting now, after the meeting, for the previous meeting, you're signing those, Chairman, today. But they don't actually record the alterations that have been made today. So therefore, I think that it's the minutes of today's meeting, the notes of today's meeting, of the previous meeting, should be amended today, and not.
Well, I'm sure they will be amended. I won't sign them today, but they will be amended prior to me signing them. That's the
Yeah.
previous meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. In regard to the actions, obviously, I think members maybe would welcome an update, a briefing on the latest position regarding Syrian refugees, and perhaps our Afghan interpreters who have joined us. If that's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to give members a briefing. Members, I'm going to read a note because I want to catch it accurately as I can, so you're right up to speed of where we are. Following our resolution at the council meeting on the 24th of September to participate in the Syrian Vulnerable Persons Relocation Scheme, officers and members have been active in planning to participate in the scheme. This has been a very positive period with internal and external partners working to ensure that we are as prepared as we can be, an organisation and a wider public service, to ensure a successful transition for those individuals relocated. A part of that has been assessing a range of issues facing the authority in fully participating. In particular, the ongoing lack of clarity regarding future funding of the scheme. With regards to this, I'm working with senior officers to determine the most appropriate response, and we have, as a council, really two options. One is to start planning to take in families from January 2016 onwards and not wait for Home Office to confirm funding figures for year 2 to 5, or we can wait for funding confirmation for years 2 to 5 before we take the next steps. Waiting for the confirmation, though, doesn't mean that it stops us from discussing and planning the logistics in preparation for arrivals. Across Gwent, there are a range of positions. Blaenau Gwent are yet to consider participation. Caerphilly are expecting their first arrivals prior to Christmas, pending allocations of families. And Tuvine are also working closely with the Home Office, and Newport is awaiting confirmation of future funding arrangements also. A particular challenge for us is the availability of appropriate housing. We're currently working with the private rental sector and continue to have discussions with the Home Office in terms of the profile of arrivals. To progress our arrangements, we will be having an internal meeting to identify school places, housing availability and all those sorts of things to determine the number of households we can commit to on the 30th of November 2015. We have had numerous offers of help and support, and we would look to organise this in a more structured and cohesive manner. I've identified areas where we can save on costs. Firstly, Caldecott Food Bank has offered to provide a welcome food pack for every household upon their arrival, which is a really positive step. And In Need Community Group in Monmouth have said that they would be happy to start collecting furniture, etc., in anticipation of new arrivals, and if MCC is able to provide storage space, perhaps a warehouse or something, they'd be happy to organise that. So I anticipate that there may be some frustration around why this is taking so long, but it's important for elected members to note that this is by far a more complex scheme than that Home Office wants us to deliver, with a much more detailed statement of requirements. One key aspect is that around the provision of the potentially acute healthcare needs that some of the family members can be expected to experience. We have met with the lead public health consultants and have confidence in the arrangements that are in place, although there are still ongoing discussions around payment structure of extra healthcare costs, and I'll report back to the next council with progress being made on that. Mr. Chairman, if I can give you a brief update on the Afghan translators, because as you know, it's not just us now. I think RCT are now a home in Afghan translators, and I'll give a brief update on this. Our involvement with the Afghan translator scheme has progressed positively, and currently we have 12 singles and 1 family located to Monmouthshire, a total of 15 individuals. We are still committed to relocating a further 9 singles, 5 couples and 9 families, which will take us beyond the initial expected end date of the project, which was March next year. We anticipate that in May take up until March 2017 to meet those commitments, and if there is capacity, we may be asked by Home Office to consider relocating more individuals, e.g. through shared accommodation becoming available as translators integrate into life in the UK and decide to move out of our area. MCC has continued to remain in close contact with the Home Office to ensure that the profile of the participants that we relocate matches our availability around housing, school places and other services. This scheme has been relatively straightforward to deliver, as DPIA has been able to provide us with a comprehensive integration support package. They manage the GP registration, obtaining national insurance numbers, exploring leisure activities and induction to local areas, etc. The first 6 arrivals are currently studying part-time in Coleg Gwent, doing advanced English. The new arrivals, 6 singles plus a family, are still going through their induction period, as they have only arrived at the end of October, early this month. We're currently in contact with Captain D. Bell of the Militia Captain, the Royal Monmouthshire Royal Engineers, to see if we can develop some initiatives for the translators to continue to engage with the military in an informal manner. And that's the update, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I'll bring further updates back to Council as soon as we have more to report.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Prosser.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As an addendum to that, I was at a military engagement session yesterday in the Infantry Battle School in Brecon, and I got talking to Lieutenant Colonel Baker, who was a doctor, and he was actually involved with Afghan translators in operation. And I told him about what we were doing, and he expressed the enthusiasm to engage with them and to help them in any way he could. I said, where do you live? He said, I live in Chepstow, which is where most of them are being housed. So I thought it was a good opportune moment. I'm putting him in touch with the appropriate people, and he's very enthusiastic to give him a guiding hand wherever he can. So there's another military involvement there.
Thank you. I must apologise. I should have also announced at the beginning of this meeting that we will be sending a letter of condolence to the Mayor of Paris on behalf of this council regarding the slaughter that took place last weekend. I hope you're all in agreement with that. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Easton.
Thank you. Sorry, could you also send a copy to the Honorary Consul in Cardiff, Mademoiselle Brousseau-Nouveau, I think that's her name. Thank you.
Yes, we will. We'll go on to item 6.1, a motion submitted by Councillor Val Smith. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. The motion is as printed in the agenda. I think, Chairman, my motion was prompted by yet another accident within my ward recently. I'm unsure of the relationship between the English and Welsh governments, how legislation works. But I do recall in 2009, and possibly the leader might as well, the UK's Department for Transport producing a consultation paper on road safety strategy entitled A Safer Way. And there was an assurance was given by the Wales First Minister to help take forward that consultation. So I think my motion seeks support for a progress report on what has actually happened since 2009, and a particular interest, obviously, in the blanket 60 miles an hour on rural roads, where a disproportionate number of road deaths occur. It's something that needs looking up and following on, Chairman. So that is my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Greenland.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm in agreement with Councillor Smith on this, but I do believe that we just need to be absolutely certain on the clarity of the wording of the motion. I had to read it twice before I got the feeling that Councillor Smith is not looking for a blanket reduction. In fact, she uses the word blanket 60 miles an hour limit. So I think what she's referring to is to reduce the speeds on some of our roads. And in order to clarify that, I would like to put an amendment replacing the second paragraph of the notice. And my amendment, Chairman, would read, whilst it is accepted that 60 miles per hour is safe on some rural roads, there are probably others where a lower limit is appropriate. In the interests of road safety, we look to the Welsh Government to review speeds on our rural roads. That just brings extra clarity to the fact that we would not seek a blanket reduction to 50 miles an hour or anything else. But it just shows that there is a need for a look at some of our roads.
I second that motion.
I didn't get a seconder for you, Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for Councillor Smith? Thank you, Councillor Down. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I will second the amendment. Sorry, Chairman. Yeah, I'll second the amendment that Councillor Greenland has put forward. I think we absolutely agree on the whole with what Val is trying to achieve, and I think that level of clarity just does help us in focusing that request to the Wales Government. So happy to take forward and write to the Welsh Government in that regard, in line with Bob's amendment, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll open up the amendment now. Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Guppy.
Yeah, just one word in. Is it the interest of road safety or the interest of improving road safety that needs to be added?
Councillor Greenland.
I would have thought that the two things mean the same.
Councillor Petruni.
Yes, Chairman. Completely appreciate where Val's coming from. No problem with trying to improve road safety in rural areas, particularly on roads. I would like to... I'm reading the Welsh Government documents on this, and it's very clear that 60-mile-per-hour rural roads, single-carriage roads, are responsible for the UK Government. But it does say on 1.4, national limits are not, however, appropriate to all roads, and highway authorities, which I believe Monmouthshire is one, can, based on local needs and considerations, set local speed limits that differ from the respective national speed limit. So it's reading from that, it's within our power to enact, in effect, rather than even write a letter to make those roads safer, which tragically has claimed another life.
Thank you. Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And you may note that Newport City Council already apply that to all the roads within their jurisdiction other than the motorways and things like that.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, I think you wanted to come back.
Yes, I'll come back, Chairman. I've won a bet. Thank you, Councillor Greenham, for rewording. There was a bet on that one. I haven't any objection whatsoever with the rewording. It makes a sense so long as it concentrates on the issue of road safety. We kill thousands of people on our roads in Britain. I think we have a car culture. Sadly, America has a gun culture. It's much better driving in America than it is here. I don't know which I prefer. No, I'm perfectly happy with whatever the wording is, so long as we actually start to look seriously at the issues on our rural roads. When children in my ward cannot walk with safety to school down a rural lane, a single one with a 60 mile an hour on it, it is ludicrous. And I'm sick and tired of people saying to me, "Oh, it's all right, Val, I'm within the speed limit." So I haven't any problems with the amendment. I don't want to lengthen the meeting. I would just like to see Councillor Fox and Greenland and members that we actually seriously address the issues of road safety. They are a huge, huge concern with the people that we represent, and we should be seen to be doing something about it. So very happy to accept your rewording, Councillor Greenland, and thank you for the fiver.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We'll go to the amendment now. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. That's carried. That now becomes the substantive motion. So could you please show again? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. I think I've woken up. Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Right. Very, very simply, Chairman, it's something they used to do in olden days, and they have charges on things. And this motion was activated by collecting 2 sacks full of bottles and tins out of the ditch outside my own home. I think it's worth looking at. The impact of the 5p on the plastic bags, certainly I don't recover very many of those from the lanes that I clear around my ward. But the bottles and certainly the tins are proliferating So I don't know how councillors feel about that, whether it's worth an approach to money is involved. There's an incentive then to collect the tins, and I think some people might be driven to do it and to collect the bottles.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Fox.
Oh, well, I'll break the ice because I thought I remember the nostalgic days of foraging as a young man, looking for Corona bottles and Tavali bottles and getting my 5p back. And indeed, that was the only level of pocket money I think I had in those days. So I'm sure the young people of today would love to rummage around, but the trouble is I'm sure the deposit would be so minimal you'd probably need to collect 20 cans to get half a pence or something, I don't know. And if the enthusiasm in young people today would be to forage like we used to do. But no, on a more serious side, whilst I absolutely agree with Val about the level of littering, and it's a personal responsibility to clean up and tidy up after yourself, and sadly in some areas, not all areas, there is a culture where people seem to think it's once it's out of their car or out of their door, it's not their problem, and that's we really need to address that. However, I think what Val is describing, I just wonder how we could practically implement such a thing, or the government could practically implement it. The bureaucracy and the cost around managing it and collecting it and redistributing it would be an absolute nightmare, and I don't know what the business community would say and what effect it would actually have on their products, and in fairness, all of those issues. I suppose there is again, this leads on to previous debates that we've had, or builds off other debates about actually revisiting the nature of the products which and the wrapping and the likes and containers that producers use for either their drinks or plastics or or whatever it is. And there's a bigger discussion outside of this organisation that needs to be had on that front to attack this issue of basically personal fly tipping and things like that. So whilst the sentiment, I think, of the motion brings to the forefront in our mind the issue of littering, and hopefully through this debate will help educate people further. I don't think there is a practical solution that I certainly couldn't get behind at the moment. So I think I'd rather be pursuing a bigger debate with the retailers on their whole packaging culture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Brian Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the recent, most LEAMS report, Local Environment and Management System, shows an improvement in cleanliness standards, not just in Monmouthshire and across Wales. But I think it's probably that is something to do again with the plastic bag tax. But this has been made despite cuts in service provision, and we should all recognise at some point the reducing budget will eventually affect the standards of service. LEAMS audits are carried out by Keep Wales Tidy and provide the local authority with external assessment and report. The principle of a deposit scheme on all drinks containers is not without its own challenges and difficulties, but as shown by the 5p bag levy, it does run hand in hand with improvements in street cleanliness. There would be a need to review the legislative recycling targets for local authorities in Wales, as the drinks containers make up a large proportion of recyclate that is currently collected at the curbside. Nevertheless, there is merit in encouraging Welsh Government to review such a scheme to see if it could work in Wales, and we maybe could write on this basis. An interesting thought occurred to me when I was reading this. We all put our recycling out tonight, or whatever night it is, in the morning. Somebody might have swiped it all because they'll be able to get the money back and all the tins and bottles. But that's for another day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Maureen Powell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you, Val, for your suggestion. But as everybody knows around my area, I pick up litter every Sunday morning, and I do not believe that the people who throw the bottles and cans out had 160 the other weekend, and I don't believe the people that throw those bottles and cans out would care two hoots if you allowed them 20 pence back on a bottle or can, because to them the money doesn't matter. I mean, you see, they go and buy pizzas and you'll see nearly a whole pizza just chucked out. Well, if they cared about money and getting money back on something, they wouldn't do that. And the people who are sensible and do recycle, of course that gets set against our landfill. If we're allowed so much against our recycling to offset the landfill. So really, the idea I don't think would get off the ground, because the litter bugs will still chuck them everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate the points. The leader reminded us of a very valid problem when he told us about his poor childhood when he was scavenging for bottles and cans. And Councillor Brian Jones referred to it. We're in danger of overthinking this one, and in fact causing a bigger problem than we solve. And in fact, in Monmouth on a Tuesday, certainly in my ward, I think the number of people who would bother to return back to the shop to reclaim their 5 pence on a drinks can is very few. They would continue to put them out and hope that the council took advantage of their 5p and 10p. But if we had some unfortunate children like the leader who were earning their pocket money by going scavenging, then I think that every Tuesday in Monmouth we would be supplying an unlimited supply of blue bags to be explored, even if the bags didn't contain bottles, scattered over our pavements in the hope that they pick up a 5p Coca-Cola can to take it back to the shop for their pocket money. And I think that the two going together, putting 5p on bottles and cans, and the Welsh Government policy of penalising councils for not recycling, and therefore councils putting a lot of emphasis on cycling, don't go together, and I think they would actually fight and not be practical to sit side by side. So we need to make our mind up. Of course, also the question comes in, should we be hiring people down at our recycling centres, separating these bottles and cans, and also taking them to the shop to claim our 5p back, as it's another source of income for the council. So I think that whilst I admire the thoughts behind the recycling, I think at the moment the present policies on recycling would prohibit such action taking place.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Jessica Crook.
I was just coming to what the leader said, really. If you prefer to do that, should we not start doing that? All well and good saying, doing is probably going to be more helpful than just saying it, isn't it? And maybe that's just a suggestion that you could take forward. Your own suggestion, so instead of just saying things without any meaning.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Petruni.
It was just to say, before we start writing to the Welsh Government about littering problems in Monmouthshire, it would be nice if we enforce some of it ourselves, considering we've only issued one fine in 3 years for littering. So it's a bit rich for us as a council, I would think, to write to the Welsh Government saying we consider this to decrease on littering when we can't even enforce fines that we have the power to do now.
Thank you, Councillor Petruni. Councillor John Prosser.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For all the reasons stated, I don't think it's a practical option. I agree with the sentiment. We all want to get rid of litter. I think the only way forward practically is to for other people to lobby large businesses to generate biodegradable containers. I do know that in Los Angeles, since 2004, I think it is, they've been developing water bottles which are biodegradable and disappear within 80 days. So, there are other versions. But I agree with the sentiment, but I'm sorry I can't agree with the practicalities in this thing.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. Councillor Roger Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Brilliant sentiment. And as has been mentioned, we run into trouble if we collected too many cans this way and people got their 5p back or whatever it was. Why don't we, because we're all concerned about litter, set an example, and I know some of us do, I know Maureen does in particular, and actually all pledge that we'll spend half an hour a week picking up litter that disgusting people that should know better actually dump into our environment. That way, we'd make sure that we improved our target for recycling.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. No one else wishes to speak. Sorry, Councillor Dovey.
Who said, oh God? You did. Peter, I'll smack you one. Thank you, Chairman. There is an issue here, of course. It's a practicality. Perhaps members are not aware that there is a system of collecting a levy or a tax, whichever way you look at it, from every retailer in the country. Tesco's, whoever, their throughput in sales is monitored, and they have to pay a levy on that, which is based on every packaged item that goes out to there. That's a government thing, and that is meant to, well, I guess get an income, but also make the retailers more conscious of the sort of packaging that they are providing. I will willingly say I don't think that is having enough effect at the moment. So what I would suggest is that if we believe there is a case here, we go back through the Assembly government to make approaches to Westminster to get the retail trade in generally to readdress the sort of packaging that they are putting out for products, because we're never going to stop the rubbish vandals that we have throwing it out through the window, and they came in all sorts of sizes, from big cars to young lads walking up and down the street. So I think the sentiment is great. I think we're attacking the problem in the wrong place. I think the solution will come farther up the chain.
Thank you, Councillor Dovey. Right, I'll put it to the vote. All those... Oh, sorry.
Very briefly. Yes, I'm glad I initiated a debate. We do need to think about it carefully. I would like us to write still to Welsh Government, urging them to put a bit of pressure on business, retail trade, that they use biodegradable, that they actually look at the packaging. If you look at what you've got in your bag when you come home that isn't biodegradable. So I would like to go for that. I'm quite happy to leave to somebody else the mechanics of how anything would be dealt with regarding rubbish. But I do think we need to start looking hard and getting at retail businesses with regard. My motion was purely directed at the tin cans and the bottles that I took out that Sunday afternoon. And to take out 2 sacks fulls from a ditch opposite your own home in a supposedly decent area, you think, my gosh, there must be some money in this. So I'm glad the discussion has taken place, Chairman. I would like to think that Welsh Assembly could be written to and said, look, the waste is an issue, costs us to dispose of, degrades our countryside, so I'll leave it to members.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We'll put it to the vote now. All those in favour of the motion, please show.
Only me. Careful, Bob.
Thank you. To those against, that was defeated. I'll be leaving the meeting now, and Councillor Higginson will be taking over.
Thank you, members. Before I ask Mr Ian Saunders to speak on this particular item, the Elder's Welfare, I would like the leaders of each group to respond before members generally come in, if that's okay with you. Councillor Greenman, do you want to say something?
Yes, Chairman, if I may. And if I could just introduce the item, first of all. First, members will recall the last meeting of Council where we discussed the 2015 Velathon in great detail. And I don't want to go back over the issues of that, but quite clearly there were some severe issues over the organisation of that event. And members expressed real concerns going forward that we should not have the same debacle as occurred last year. Welsh Government at a very early stage accepted the errors that had been made in the organisation of the 2015 event, and they themselves brought forward a review of what had happened. That independent review gave recommendations that were to be adopted if the event was to go forward. And if I remember rightly, there were 24 different recommendations from that. Since that time, there has been a company appointed, Run for Wales, to organise and to manage the event for 2016. And our officers have been in constant dialogue with Welsh Government and Run for Wales to try and address the problems that members had identified with the 2015 event. And I think that we have reached a point, Deputy Chair, where we can come back to you and actually recommend that we move forward with the event for 2016. We have undertaken a lot of work and a lot of discussion with members fairly recently. We had a members' seminar where Welsh Government, Run for Wales, as well as our own officers, were present to explain the proposals for 2016. And in fact, in your pack, you will see outlined those proposals. So I think the time has come where we as members, and certainly speaking for our group, as the leader has indicated, we are satisfied that we have sufficient assurances to move forward with the 2016 event. I should add that other councils, the other 4 councils, have all had similar concerns, but all 4 have now indicated that they are happy to move forward on the basis of the assurances that we've been given. So I would like to introduce a motion to go with this debate, and I'll read it out if I may, Deputy Chairman. Following the debate at the last council meeting, it is acknowledged that officers have worked extensively with Welsh Government to address the concerns of members around the organisation of the 2015 Velathon. We welcome the appointment of Run for Wales to deliver the Velathon for 2016 and have received from them assurances that the route through Monmouthshire will be amended and that extensive consultation and communication with those affected will be at the centre of their work leading up to the event. Having received these assurances, Council supports the inclusion of Monmouthshire in the Wales Velathon in 2016.
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. Is that seconded?
Second that.
Thank you. Councillor Batruni, would you like to...
Yes, Chairman. I have no problem with the Velathon coming to Monmouthshire, but I just have 2 points I wish to make, if I may, on the report in front of us. 4.2, the council and the event organisers will identify opportunities to promote the county. Will that come to us in a paper in some form, telling us exactly what opportunities have been available or were made available, or is that just kind of a rhetorical statement? I mean, will we see facts? And on 5.1, any costs incurred in hosting the event will be met from existing service budgets. Could we have a bit more detail than that? Are we expecting any costs? If so, how much ballpark? Given that presumably the costs would fall on Innovation, Enterprise and Leisure, which has already got a huge amount of cuts to make this year and offloading a fair amount of services. I'm just a bit of concern about that, and I wonder if you could offer me some reassurance on that. Is it just in case we do incur on the remote chance we get costs, or are we going to get costs?
Before we go to the next speaker, could Councillor Greenman respond to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we're not at the end of this discussion. In fact, we're only really at the beginning of the discussion leading up to the Velathon, and we intend to have many more meetings to work out the details that you've alluded to as well. And I would also ask that one of the select committees keeps it on its agenda for the time leading up to the Velothon to ensure that all members are happy with the way that the details are being worked out. As far as costs are concerned, we have accepted that there are inevitably going to be some costs on the day of the event because of the road closures, and our desire to ensure that our residents are not inconvenienced or are as inconvenienced as little as possible. But all of those costs will be contained within existing budgets. There will not be additional budgets created to run the Velothon as far as Monmouthshire is concerned.
Councillor Mrs Taylor, are you speaking on behalf of the group, or if not, is it Councillor Down as the Deputy Group Leader? And I come to you after. I'm asking you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed that.
Okay, Chairman. Yes, I'm not sure that Councillor Greenland has really answered Councillor Petruni's question on the issue of costs. If it has to come out from out of existing service budgets, then self-evidently something else has to give. And I think I'd be interested to know, we'd all be interested to know what that would be. I also share the concern about the losses incurred by businesses in the county last time. And whilst there is no doubt that the county in general benefits from events being held in the county or passing through the county, I think specific businesses would tell a very different tale, and I think they will need some reassurance. However, Chairman, although I would ask the constitutional question of whether it's possible to put a motion without notice, I think, broadly speaking, we're certainly in favour of having this event back in Monmouthshire next year. On a personal basis, I would ask if there could be a quid pro quo, and we can have a few cycle-free Sundays, perhaps, in the county. But that's my personal prejudice showing. But otherwise, I think we would support the gist of certainly support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Down. I got Councillor Mrs Taylor, Councillor Mrs Smith, and Councillor John Prosser in that order.
Apologies, Chair. Do you really want to go before me, Tony?
Just want to make Well, Chair, I was going to raise a point of order which Councillor Down has referred to.
No, we're not taking any motions.
I was going to take a point of order, Chair, in relation to the motion put before us.
What is the point of order, please?
Essentially, Chair, you did say, I understand, that Mr Saunders is going to give us a briefing on this before we got into the big debate.
You will do in a while.
Well, could we have it sooner rather than...
No, I think I'll bring in Mr Saunders later. I'll have the councillors' views first, please.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't hear you refer to the group leaders speaking first. I must have been far away. But equally, can prefer it if you didn't refer to me as Councillor Mrs Taylor. I don't think my marital status has got
my apologies.
Any relevance. Thank you. It's picking up on the point around the finance, really, and I think it would be, I think at this stage, at the stage we are in the budget process, I think it's important for us to understand at present what officers have advised the Cabinet will be the likely trade-off for running the Velothon in actual terms, in that roughly what do we think that's going to cost and what do we think we are not going to be able to do. And we see that in the report, as Councillor Petruni refers to, we are asking that there are opportunities to promote Monmouthshire. But what is the consequential financial gain that is going to offset our investment in the Velothon event? I know that things are supposed to be a great deal better for those communities who suffered some great disturbance and potential loss of income and business in the last year. However, one would have thought that we would be looking to secure some gains this time. Appreciate that it's early days, but I do think that Councillor Greenland probably does need to provide us with some assurances and some, some concrete information as far as he can at this point. I'm also interested to know, if we can just have a short overview of it, whether there's been any progress in persuading the Velathon organisers that it would be beneficial to have a starting or finishing point within the county of Monmouthshire. I certainly wasn't convinced when the organisers came that they really knew where the borders of Monmouthshire were. They talked about being in Cwmbran and how lovely Monmouthshire was. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Val-Smith is next.
Thank you, Chairman. I came to the presentation. I found it very useful, informative. What I was going to suggest, please, very soon, if it is agreed that the Velathon will take place, that we put onto our website, easily accessible, clearly, a very clear map as to the route that's going to be followed, so that the public can see whether they're going to be infected and how it impacts on them. A straightforward map. Because have I missed one within the report? I don't know. But for the residents, please, a clear map on our website so that they can actually refer to the route, if it's agreed.
Thank you. There will be a response to that. Councillor John Prosser.
Thank you, Chair. In organising such events, things move very fast, and I think they need to have indication that we support it or not. I went to the seminar a week or two ago. I was quite dismayed that only 8 or 9 maximum members were present at that. There's the usual suspects who go to regularly to the seminars, etc., where they were quite open. It's a new organisational structure. It's running Wales. They were quite open to all questions. They seemed to know what they were doing. I was encouraged because I was a big sceptic when I came into the room, but I was quite encouraged by what they presented. And so I think at this stage we should lend our support and say that we do support the Velathon. Lots more detail to go through, yes. They convinced me that they would be forthcoming. They would be talking to people, talking to residents, talking to community councils, and relaying all the information. So I trust them that they will do that, and I support the motion.
Councillor Brian Jones next.
Thank you, Chairman. Serious risk of me being in a minority of one here today, I'm afraid. I've taken advice from the monitoring officer about this, and he thinks there's no need for me to declare an interest. Even though this event passes my premises, I can still be accessed from a different direction. But despite the meetings that have taken place, and I came along and listened to what everybody had to say on that day, I cannot support this event because the effect it will have upon residents in my ward, albeit a different group of residents to the one that suffered the last one. I am sad to do this as a cabinet member. It's not usual. I go against what one, I suppose, might deem the party line, but I cannot support it simply because the effect that it has is the people of Nantaderry and that part of Novermber that is in my ward will be confined to their homes all day. They won't be able to get out, as people weren't able to get out last time. And, if you had to go to work all the week and then somebody tells you you'll be prevented from leaving your home in a vehicle to have a day out or visit friends or go to see family for lunch, it wouldn't hack you off a bit, I would think. And I'm afraid at the end of the day I must represent my constituents rather than specifically this council. Worse than that, there are some people who have to go to work, and we had a problem with this last time, and quite a number who need to travel from one farm to another. And I know they are, and they will have a difficulty. I appreciate we hear a lot about the value of the event, but I believe it's detrimental to Monmouthshire business and residents, and I cannot support it. And just dealing with the costs for one moment, which have been referred to, and I guess Ian can tell everybody about this afterwards anyway. But what I can say is that all the signage last time was put up by the event organisers, not by our highways people. I believe, did we have some highways, a couple of highways teams on standby in case of accidents and stuff like that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor David Dovey, followed by Councillor Sarah Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I too went to the presentation and was better impressed with it than I thought I was going to be. Just 2 points, really. What came up was the fact that we needed to have the right level of consultation, not only between the council, but also the people that are going to be affected. And I asked that the consultation took place with the residents in the key areas and the route, and I would hope that that is still minuted and will happen. And the other thing I thought was important, these velothons are run in different places around the country, and it must be the case that people see opportunities to take advantage of them in businesses, etc. Now, this is only going to be our second, and so the first one was very much a learning process. And I would hope that the organisers will bring with them ideas as to how people in other parts of the country running velothons have seen opportunities for local businesses, so it is less of a burden to them, and they hopefully will have a more positive attitude towards it. But if the right consultation levels are in place, I accept what the councillor says in front of me, but if the right consultation levels are in place, hopefully we should be able to get round a lot of the issues. Thank you.
Councillor Dovey. Councillor Sarah Jones, followed by Councillor Penny Jones.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just referring to the point that Councillor Greener made about this going to one of the select committees. Dependent on the outcome today, then I'd suggest that we put this forward to our work programme at our meeting next week. We already receive a number of reports in relation to events from the team in terms of return on investment and communications and engagement. And so we'll ensure that that's on the work programme so that we can have close scrutiny as the event goes forward, pre and post event.
Thank you. Councillor Penny Jones, followed by Councillor Roger Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the changes that are going to be made and have been made, and look forward to a better organised event involving the communities through which the race pass. However, I would like to put in a request, please, that the officers concerned, alongside perhaps Run for Wales, contact all community councils and town councils and give a presentation to them so that the communities are fully involved and know the itinerary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roger Harris.
Thank you, Chair. As far as I can see from the information I've got in front of me, the velothon will be on the 22nd of May 2016. We're on the television, so hopefully anyone watching will take note of that day. We must make sure that the press, I hope we've got the press here, publicise that date so that nobody will be able to say on the 23rd of May, I didn't know anything about it. It's a perfect opportunity for businesses to get their act together that may be affected and think up something innovative that's going to actually attract people to come and be in their business when the velothon goes past. So it's something for them to think about. As regards people being trapped in their houses, it's a perfect opportunity to see long lost relatives. They can come for the day, or people can go away for the day, and it's not rocket science. You know if the road is going to be closed, so do something about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Can I come back to you, Councillor Green, please? I think one of the officers wants to speak to the velothon issue. Councillor Deborah Hill. Officer Deborah Hill Howell.
Good afternoon. You may be aware that I'm actually picking up the mantle from Ian, which is why I'm now talking to this rather than Ian. I think the members that turned up to the seminar last week will have been greatly comforted by Run for Wales. Run for Wales are actually a social enterprise. They run the half marathon in Cardiff and have been doing that for a number of years. They freely admitted that they've learnt lots of lessons in delivering the half marathon, and they'll use that learning in actually hosting the Velathon for us and for the other authorities in the next year. They understand how important it is to consult fully with everybody who's impacted by this, and they gave an undertaking last week, and they continue to give that undertaking, that they will do full consultation in the event that we agree today to go ahead with a Velathon through Monmouthshire. They've also made an undertaking that they will speak to all the town and community councils to make sure that they are aware. One of the other lessons that we learnt last year was about the road closures and how we can mitigate that. We drove all the various options in terms of that route with Run for Wales and Lagardère, with Ian and myself, a couple of weeks ago. We've looked at all of the options. We've tried to pick a route that minimises the impact on businesses, but accept that there will be impact on residents and businesses. What we will look to do is to how we can shorten those impacts by making sure that we can reduce those road closures. Also look at crossing points between the professional race and the mass participation event, and whether if there are weddings and things like that that we need to accommodate, how we can accommodate those. By agreeing and doing all of this much earlier than last year, it gives us the opportunity to put a plan in place to manage this event in a more constructive manner than that was done last year, simply because of timescales. We will try and promote Monmouthshire. We have had discussions with the organisers in terms of what we can do in terms of starting and finishing the event in Monmouthshire in future years. That is not an option for 2016. It may be an option in later years. In terms of promotion, a lot of the cyclists that take part in this event don't live in Wales. They will come beforehand to recce the course, which means that they will be cycling on Monmouthshire's routes, which will give us the opportunity to promote all of our restaurants, cafes, places to stay in terms of Monmouthshire before the event, possibly during the event and after the event. We'll also work to ensure that we can consult fully. We take on board totally the fact that we need to make sure residents are aware and businesses are aware. We will put information on the website as soon as it goes public if we agree this afternoon. So we will do all of that. We will also work with our hubs and with our contact centre to make sure that in each area there are people who are fully engaged and fully aware of what is going on, and we will make sure that information is passed back to Lagardère and to Run for Wales, so if we don't know the answer, they will be able to sort that out. The governance structures as well gives us far more coordination and far more ability this time going forward to have a say and to make sure that if there are issues arising, we can deal with them as they arise in a far more prompt manner. We are far more comforted this time that the procedures that we are putting into place and having Run for Wales on board actually enables us to deliver an event that will minimise, there will be disruption, but it will minimise that disruption and maximise the benefits to Monmouthshire, bearing in mind this event will appear again on multimedia throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Greenland.
I think Deb has actually covered it all. I think she did an extremely good job there. But I just want to reiterate, this is a huge opportunity for Monmouthshire, and it should not be viewed in the negative way that perhaps was inevitable from last year's performance. There will be issues, and we will try and deal with those issues, both for businesses and for individuals, so that they are not inconvenienced too much. But there will be problems on the day. But the main message for this is an opportunity to put Monmouthshire forward. It's another opportunity to sell Monmouthshire. We can't do it. We can't afford to market it in the way that this gives us an opportunity to do, and other events that continue to drip feed, that Monmouthshire is a great place to come to. There are ways that businesses can actually look at not just the day, but the weeks leading up to the event, when loads of these cyclists will be coming into the county to practice. Why not, therefore, businesses take the opportunity of perhaps offering packages to people to come and stay in Monmouthshire and practice from here? All sorts of opportunities. It's up to businesses to grab those opportunities. And I again would ask Council to support the motion.
For the benefit of the members who put their hands up since Councillor Greenland has been speaking, perhaps it's remiss of me to say we would go to the vote after Councillor Greenland spoke. But one councillor certainly has spoken, and it was my intention after Councillor Greenland to sum up the case and then to go to the vote. It's a straight vote for and against. I think reference would be made. Would you like to repeat something in relation to the cost, Councillor Greenland?
Obviously, we will be looking to keep down to minimum costs. But the one thing that hasn't been said is that every time we organise major events, we get huge support from volunteers on the day. And without those, there would be quite some major costs. And I think we need to recognise the contributions that volunteers make to running such events. But inevitably, those volunteers do need managing. There will be some costs. It's almost impossible at this time to say what those will be. But as it's been said before, they will be contained within budgets and will be kept to a minimum.
Thank you. We're going to the vote now. It's a straight for and against.
Chairman, before you do, can you deal with the point of order that Councillor Eason raised, and indeed that I made?
Which was, remind me?
Which was the point about putting a motion without notice.
Yeah, I did say I wouldn't take a motion without notice, but I'd like the Deputy Monitoring Officer to read.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Chairman. I don't think there's a problem here, Councillors Down and Eason, in that there's a report on the agenda, albeit it was a late report. The Chairman used his discretion to introduce this as an urgent item. It's time sensitive. Particularly in light of the motion from the September meeting of Councillor Penny Jones. The motion that Councillor Greenland has put forward, I think, is an amendment, if you like, to the recommendation in that report in front of you. And it may be helpful if Councillor Greenland repeats what that amended motion is, if you like, and then that will become the recommendation in the report, and if Council wants to pass that, then it can. I hope that helps.
Councillor Greenland.
Okay, here is the amendment. Whilst it is accepted... Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. Get back onto Velathon. Following the debate at the last Council meeting, it is acknowledged that officers have worked extensively with Welsh Government to address the concerns of members around the organisation of the 2015 Velathon. We welcome the appointment of Run for Wales to deliver the Velathon for 2016 and have received from them assurances that the route through Monmouthshire will be amended and that extensive consultation and communication with those affected will be at the centre of their work leading up to the event. Having received these assurances, Council supports the inclusion of Monmouthshire in the Wales Velathon in 2016.
Thank you. Is that amendment seconded?
Yeah, I'll second that, Jim.
Point of order again. Do we really need
a
motion?
What is the point of order, please?
Do we really need a motion? It's just 2.2, a recommendation 2.2 as far as I'm concerned. The recommendation is quite clear. 2.2 would just clarify exactly what Councillor Greenland said.
Recommendation 2.1.
Sorry, yeah.
If you read the papers, actually what is produced there is the report that went to Council on the 7th of October. It is not the recommendation, or it is not a recommendation for today's meeting, which is why we brought forward the further recommendation.
Right.
And it has been to select committee.
Right. Thanks, okay. Councillor Leeson, you've accepted that.
Fine.
Right, it's a straight vote for or against. Those for the amended recommendation as stated by Councillor Green, please show.
That's a vote then.
That's carried, obviously. Thank you. Could someone call the chairman back in, please?
Thank you, councillors. We'll go on to item 7 on the agenda. 7A, and I think it's Mr. Jeff Burrows, Councillor Jeff Burrows.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just really want to say a few things and be really quite brief. This is in fact the 4th iteration of this trio of reports that we receive here at Full Council in respect of safeguarding. It has been to Select and it has also been to Cabinet and been very positively received. All I really want to say about this is that prior to November 2012, I think the word safeguarding and the meaning behind it was very much the receipt of Children and Young Persons Select Committee only. And since then, with the huge amount of work through the safeguarding unit and really the contribution that everyone has made through members, officers and staff, safeguarding now is becoming pretty much a cornerstone of what this authority is about and what it stands for. As far as safeguarding is concerned, it's everybody's business. What we have is many directorates now that have been in receipt of training. There are, in my understanding, over 2,000 level 1 training sessions have been undertaken, and level 2 and level 3 is carrying on as well. Besides that, we've got within the directorates trainers themselves, so it is not now the need of the safeguarding unit itself to be doing all this work, and so it is continuing to embed. I think for me the important thing here is that we're getting to a point when people throughout the authority, if they see something they're not sure about, the difference between now and then is that they've got the knowledge, they know what to do about it, what to say and who to go to. Safeguarding is absolutely everybody's business, and I'm delighted we're making the progress that we're doing. I'm not complacent, we've got more to do. It is a cultural thing, but I feel and sense that it is continuing to embed well. We're about to be scrutinised pretty heavily in a week or so's time as far as safeguarding and other aspects of our educational plan is concerned. But one of the messages I'll certainly be giving to the inspectors when they come and talk to us about safeguarding is that, in my view, they could come in a couple of years' time unannounced, and what they will see is yet more of the same and a philosophy and a culture that's continuing to embed. So all I want to say is thank you very much to Jane for a very comprehensive set of reports. Obviously, Ellis Williams, in his external scrutiny of what we're doing, was suggesting that perhaps in time these reports will be condensed somewhat. That'll be as the familiarity of what they mean becomes clearer to people. But again, a good set of reports, and thanks again to Jane in particular and the safeguarding unit in the great work they're doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. Councillor Petruni.
Yes, two things, Chair. First thing, just one is pedantic. The paper itself says meeting CYP Select. I mean, just could we be clear that it's the council and is providing, and the recommendation doesn't seem to make sense either because it talks about the Select receives the attached report. Sorry for being so pedantic. Second point, when I read this when it came to Cabinet, I thought it was a fantastic report. I read it quite extensively, and I think I mentioned at Cabinet as well. There's only one reference to housing, and I mentioned at Cabinet at the time. In my role as a local councillor, every time I've come across safeguarding issues, or what I would define as safeguarding issues, it's through, and it started off as a housing case, and then you hear about other follow-on causes or problems or issues, and I'm just concerned that it still refers to housing once in the whole report, and I think not an omission, but maybe we could think about that more deeply.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dimitri. I do recall the comments you made actually at Cabinet, and they are points well made, and I think it really just contributes to the point that this will be an endless journey. It will continue to embed. Obviously, priorities will ebb and flow slightly as familiarity and circumstances change. I mean, like, for example, in the training, that will be an endless exercise because, not least, we have staff turnover. So there will be a constancy about this particular subject, and welcome the point, and the very valid point as far as housing is concerned, and I shall make a point of actually discussing that with Jane next time we get together about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. Councillor Francis Taylor.
A similar point, really. I think in the report it does say, for example, that we've made progress in terms of embedding safeguarding in terms of the role of elected members, because Cabinet members have had level 1 safeguarding training. Well, I don't know how many of my colleagues have also, wider than cabinets, had level 1 safeguarding training, but I'm not necessarily certain that it is everybody. And I think that probably ought to be reflected. And equally, as Councillor Petruni says, really, it's about, I think I'd probably have liked to have seen slightly clearer reflection about, similar to the issue of corporate parenting when we discussed that last time. What are you expecting specifically from elected members, not cabinet members, but just the rest of us really. And equally, if you are expecting members to play a particular role, I think there's a case for a stronger critique of, at the moment, do elected members know exactly, where to go, what the route is, where would they get support? And I know that's under development, but I do think it's important because, as Councillor Burrows says, it is a journey. And as he says, equally, we will be, this will be scrutinised, continue to be scrutinised.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for those comments. I mean, my sense as far as the level 1 training for our members, I think is a very valid point. I think the point when that could be served up would perhaps be an induction when all new councillors start the new administrative term. If people are interested to avail themselves of this, because ultimately, as far as the training is concerned, I think you're right. It is a very levelling opportunity that everyone gets a complete understanding, and members themselves should not be separated from that. After all, most members are governors in schools, and therefore they should be taking the safeguarding message through to their individual governing bodies. And so I think it's a point made that I appreciate. I think perhaps the pointed induction of new members will be formally the time when level 1 training for safeguarding is brought in, and then we can probably move it from there. But if anyone in the meantime is interested in availing themselves of the training, I'm very happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. Councillor Penny-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, Councillor Burrows has mentioned what I was going to mention, and that is that a lot of members, are governors, and they should have had the training now as part of their governorship. The other thing is there has been a members' seminar which wasn't terribly well attended, and perhaps we could carry on down that road and have more development there. And I do agree with Councillor Taylor. I think that every single councillor should have a level 1 at least training. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. No one else wishes to speak. Could I ask you to receive the report? Please show. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a run of 3 linked reports here. These reports on gambling and similar have been through the licence in committee and have received full endorsement from those committees. They're here today for our perspective. The first one is a proposal for casinos, the Gambling Act 2005, and it's for us to consider our existing resolution, and that is not to permit casinos within the county of Monmouthshire, and clearly that is the recommendation as well. Section 154 of the Gambling Act requires the authority to prepare and publish a gambling policy, and there's a duty on us to review it every 3 years, and we last reviewed this on the 22nd of November in 2012, and it's before us here today. In 3.3 you'll get a little bit more history from what's happened since 2007 regarding casinos, and there are only actually, as you see there, 140 casinos permitted across the UK with grandfather rights. You'll see then in 3.4 that if Monmouthshire was to change its view and lift its resolution that restricts casino applications, we would only be permitted to submit a bid to allow applications for casinos in the county if one of those other casinos already licensed within Britain handed in their licence, and that's unlikely as it's seen there. There's some further description, Chairman, on of what constitutes a large or small casino, which members can read at their leisure. However, I draw us back to the recommendation. I would happily move that in 2.1 to refuse casino applications made under the Gambling Act 2005 within their gambling policy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Murphy, thank you. All in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Clearly carried.
Thank you, Chairman. Next one, a similar report to agree the Council's statement of Gambling Policy 2016, and again under Section 349 of the Gambling Act of 2005 requires us to periodically publish a statement in regard to gambling policy, and I think that has to be done every 3 years as well. There is a requirement to go out to full consultation with those listed in 3.4, the police, fire authority and other individuals. That consultation has taken place, and you'll see in 3.5 that there is some feedback, minor alterations which needed to be suggested to be made, and then you can there's further information from the licensing forum in 3.16. So a straightforward report, Mr. Chairman, and I'll move the recommendation in 2.1 to adopt the Gambling Act policy for Monmouthshire County Council that's provided in Appendix 2.
Did you have a seconder? Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Petruni.
Yeah, just a query, Chairman. On the previous item, proposals for casinos 8A, on page 80 on electronic copy, it talks about community resilience and about actually, basically, you know, I support rejecting casinos, but online gambling is just, you know, it's just do it with your phone. So and on page 80, it says about talking about community resilience, about strengthening those communities, particularly those more deprived communities where gambling is more endemic. And I looked at our 8B adoption of a gambling policy, and I couldn't see any community resilience sort of work. I might have missed it, but I don't think we've got a sort of policy or a kind of discussion about how we would do this in Monmouthshire, because we're talking about casinos, physical presence, but as I said, mobile phones, laptops, you can just, betting is so easy. So it's about a bigger, wider narrative, I would suggest, Chairman, that doesn't seem to be reflected in our policy.
Thank you very much. Councillor Down.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to underline whatever reputation I have for pedantry, on page 32 of the document, just someone seems to have grabbed a pile of apostrophes and just chucked them at the page, probably having pinched some from page 26, but those aren't the points that I really want to make. It's page 3 of the policy document, and the paragraph, the 5th paragraph, the one that is highlighted. Council has a legal obligation to comply with all legislation that promotes equality. Fine. Has a policy in place to promote equality to all. Great. Planning and Public Protection Service area has its own equalities framework, which is available for inspection on our website. Super. Licensing of persons and premises under the Gambling Act 2005 will actively promote equality of service and enforcement to all members of the community. Now, personally, I don't get a problem with equality and making sure that everyone is treated on exactly the same basis, whatever their age, colour, creed, race, religion, whatever. However, to impose that obligation on the private sector when Parliament, as I understand it, hasn't decided that there should be such a requirement, strikes me as being as going perhaps a little bit further than we ought to. We all support equalities, but to demand it in the way the private sector operations run their business, I think is something which we should leave to Parliament, not try to sort out for ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? No, I don't know the answer to your query, Councillor Down. I don't know whether Mr. David Jones would like to... yeah, perhaps you could answer both questions.
I lean into Councillor Smith. I think it's actively promoted, it's not saying thou shalt. I think it's about the whole issue of if you've got problem gambling, that's something we can look at in terms of looking at the betting shops. So look at that. In answer to the question of online gambling, I think I agree, that's the Gambling Commission. So we've got no jurisdiction over online gambling. The only time we get involved with that perhaps is training standards, if it's a sort of that type of issue. But in terms of the equality bit, I take your point. I think it's about our role with gambling premises. That's the high streets gambling premises, plus obviously horse racing, etc. So I think, and I think we're trying to comply with central guidance that will talk about promoting equality as opposed to saying thou shalt do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I think both members want to come back. Councillor Petruni.
Might be on my misunderstanding, Chairman, but I was wondering if I was talking about us engaging in a wider education, I suppose, in maybe targeted areas about online gambling and its problems, as it seems to be mandated to in 8A, where it talks about. So it's not about us passing legislation as such, maybe through our poverty strategy, I think Will McLean might be looking into, about online gambling and addictions and how it can cause all sorts of other issues. I think I was hoping maybe for a state, maybe we might not be able to, but in our policy maybe have a section on that and about how we're going to deal with that, because quite frankly, it's so easy to gamble these days that rejecting a casino is neither here or there.
And Councillor Down.
Yes, Chairman. With great respect to David, that's not what the paragraph says. It doesn't talk at all about addiction to gambling. What it talks about, actively promote equality of service. Well, and it's not the council promoting equality of service, because clearly the council should promote equality of service. It's about the persons and premises promoting equality of service, and it goes on to talk about enforcement. So it's not just put your arm around someone and say, come on, old chap, you need to do a bit better than that. So I have to say I would like to see that paragraph removed entirely from the policy.
I don't know, but David Jones, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, it's obviously, we do, sorry about leaning in. Yeah, it is our policy statement, so clearly if members were unsatisfied with that actual piece, we could withdraw that if Councillor Down's got exception to it.
He would like to speak.
Yes, it was just a comment made about community resilience. The licensing premises are asked to take up the code of conduct of licensing premises, and that would look at community resilience and look at the vulnerable people that are using these. And I think that may cover the scope of the licensing. That may be Dimitri might have thought that we're not applying, but certainly we are applying in view of trying to promote that code of conduct that licensees premises are using. And also with the 4 main objectives to licensing, we have to have respect for the public and also protection of children as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Chief Executive would like to come in now.
Yeah, just quickly, I think on Councillor Down's point, you can take a view as council in terms of whether that stays or whether it goes in a moment. Dave, you can just nod or shake to help. On Councillor Petruni's point, did you confirm that online is beyond the scope of this paper? Yeah, so it's not in scope. Therefore, Councillor Petruni's question, which was a good question, is probably not for this conversation. If we wanted to take a position on online, we would do it separately and subsequently to this piece of work. Is that right? Does that help, Councillor?
Thank you. Sorry. Could we go back to the recommendation? I know that Councillor Down is a little bit unhappy about that particular paragraph. Would it be advisable for that to be taken back to the licensing committee for discussion? No? Councillor Prosser.
Yes, sir. I must admit I might have written it differently, that paragraph, but I don't disagree with it. What it's saying is the action of licensing of persons and premises in itself, under the Gambling Act, will actively promote equality of service and enforcement to all members of the community. In other words, same rules apply to all. You know, those are the rules. We're going to make it sure it's equal across the service. So I read it in a slightly different way, and I'm quite content with it personally. But I understand I might have worded it differently if I was to write it to avoid any confusion.
Thank you. Well, we'll go to the vote then. To adopt the Gambling Act policy for Monmouthshire County Council provided in Appendix A. Please show. Those against? Thank you. Right, we go on to 8.3 or 8C.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Another one, similar vein, all linked. The Public Health Control of Disease Act 1984 and Health Protection Regulations. And this report is to consider the appointment of proper officers and the delegation of powers to the head of community protection under the Public Health Control of Disease Act and regulations made there under. The recommendation is to appoint the designated consultants the listed out in Appendix 1, consultants in communicable disease control and health protection. They are identified as proper officers under Section 113(1)(a) of the Local Government Act 1972, and to delegate the powers to the head of community protection as outlined in Appendix 1, and to replace previous reference to Chief Officer R&C with Head of Democratic and Regulatory Services. It's pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman, and the names are in Appendix 1 of those proper officers. It's recommended that local council, the council appoint the following. Mrs. Heather Lewis as proper officer, Dr. Rhianwen Stiff as proper officer, and Mr. Sean Ligard and Dr. Graham Brown as alternate proper officers. I move the report, Mr. Chairman, I think.
Does anyone wish to speak? No? Can I just have a seconder for that for a report? Thank you. Councillor Farley.
Thank you, Chair. I have no wish to see this go anywhere other than through, but the information we're given about the persons concerned is not very great. I would just like to be assured that all of them are members of properly regulated bodies, have suitable qualifications, etc., etc.
Councillor Howard. Sorry.
Thanks, Chairman. I've got a question, a bit of a tangent really, and I'm sure I've been provided the answer before, but I'm afraid it escapes me. It comes to mind, I remember years ago that library books would always have a leaf of paper inside them listing a number of communicable diseases, and if that had been experienced in the household, then notice should be given to the library or whatever. I assume there was some possibility that a disease could be transferred via the book or whatever being taken out of the library. That doesn't happen now, and I just wondered if Dave could explain why not.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
I'm sure I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow Dave to give some reassurance to Councillor Farley over the credentials of the individuals, but perhaps also to reflect on Councillor Howard's point.
Okay. Mr. David Jones, please.
I'll pick up the easier one, Councillor Farley. As he knows, these are obviously Public Health Wales consultants in public health, but certainly they'd be helpful to approve them, because as you know, if a major outbreak, we need to act rapidly. But certainly we can clarify that, because I've got to write to them and say that now they're confirmed to be authorised through the council. So we can certainly deal with that, Councillor Farley. The second one, Councillor Howard, I've got no idea as to whether library books ever have that. And certainly I can certainly do a briefing note, that's easy, in terms of salmonellas, the E. coli, got, you know, Staphylococcus aureus, etc. So we've got that, not showing off, Clostridium perfringens. So we can certainly do that, but not sure in terms of your question about library books. Maybe I can speak to colleagues in libraries, I'm not sure. Okay.
All in favour then of the recommendations? Thank you very much. From Councillor Petruni to the leader, Peter Fox.
As stated on the paper, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri, for the question. I'll be as concise as I can. There is a set of latest data which has been produced, I'm sure Councillor Petruni found to sources his question, and it gives comprehensive statistics across the whole of Wales. And those latest statistics show that across Wales there has been a slight decline in gross school expenditure. Monmouthshire's figure, as with the majority of councils, has declined slightly this year from last, but still remains some £150 per pupil more than the Welsh average. In this current year, our gross spend per pupil will be £5,675 per pupil against a Welsh average of £5,526. Just to give some comparison, our neighbouring authorities, for instance, Newport, spend around £540 less per pupil than we do. Torvine spend about £210 less than us, and Caerphilly spend about £170 less per us. So I think recognising that we are the lowest funded council in Wales, I think our commitment to school funding and education is pretty unquestionable. But however, I think it's very dangerous to use figures as a barometer for achievement. They shouldn't be used as a barometer for achievement because we've seen, different, a variety of funding, of pupil funding across Wales. Always has been the case, and it's not indicative always of outcomes, Mr. Chairman. So I hope that just gives a flavour.
Do you have a supplementary?
Chairman, figures in front of me are slightly different, or maybe we could reconcile them later. But the figures in front of me say that we're 11th in terms of per pupils of all 22 local authorities. And my concern relies on Councillor Fox's statement, 30th July County Council, where he said, and I quote, "We are one of the highest funders of schools in Wales." Well, that's not true in absolute terms, and it's not true in per pupil terms. So why was he deliberately misleading the council?
Certainly wasn't deliberately misleading the council. I think I probably was reiterating our commitment to educational spend, and we have traditionally been a funding council which is funding above the Welsh average, indeed far higher than the majority of Labour-run councils across Wales, who are significantly funding less. And actually, well, I'll give another statistic. Whilst I was looking at this, it was interesting and pleasing to note the gross expenditure on SEN funding, for instance, in Monmouthshire, has increased by 1.3%, about 112,000 over the last year, which is a really important statistic when we see many other councils across Wales actually slashing money to SEN.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Second question, Councillor Petruni.
As stated on the paper, Chairman.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll do my best on this one, Dimitri. Your question asks how many people were threatened with homelessness in 14-15. However, the council doesn't recognise necessarily threatened as one of the categories under which we accept inquiries or applications from homeless people. What we do have is general inquiries to the housing options team, some of which will be related to homelessness, but not all. We know from experience that it's impossible to say that inquiries to the housing options team equate to people being threatened by homelessness, as these things are more complex and multifaceted and rarely straightforward. What I can share is that we determined 249 direct homelessness applications in 14-15, which was down 300 on the 388 in 13-14. And of those 249, we accepted a full duty, which is a provision of permanent settled accommodation, for 112 of those. But I must be clear, we don't just leave people we don't accept for a full duty towards to drift. They fall into our wider housing option service, and we signpost them to the private rented sector or to other housing schemes, or it turns out they provide for their own accommodation needs with help and support from us. On another point, there have been a drop from 13-14 in the number of bed and breakfast placements to just 11. This demonstrates a downward trajectory. However, where possible, we do not try to use bed and breakfast for children and family placements. However, we have had to do that on one occasion during Christmas last year due to a fire. I think that I'll do from there, actually, Chairman. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Batruni.
According to the statistics from the Welsh Government, from Wales Stats Wales, Monmouthshire is the third worst performing authority in preventing homelessness for at least 6 months, preventing households from homelessness within six months. Can you explain why we are so poor?
Thank you. I think that KPI is one which has been found to be flawed. You're right, the actual statistic, if you read it, it suggests that the potentially homeless presented for at least 6 months was up to 44.8% from 24.15 in 13-14. This is a statutory KPI. However, it's been really been dogged with problems. And I understand that the Auditor General did a study 2 years ago and has judged now that this KPI is unsafe on these grounds, and this KPI is now designated as no longer a comparable across Wales, and from next year it will be discontinued. So in terms of an ongoing priority, our main focus continues to be identifying and accessing private rented accommodation to prevent homelessness and discharge homelessness duty in lieu of the short supply of social housing. So I'm won't be held to account necessarily over that KPI. It's one that the Auditor General does no longer recognise, and sadly it's still there as well. It's actually finished now, I think, and it won't be reported for 15-16 because it's been scrapped.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Your third question, Councillor Batruni.
It's on the paper, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Dimitri. The answer is quite straightforward. In 2014-15, the number of residents who benefited from council tax reduction scheme was 6,309. In 13-14, the comparative figure was 6,503.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Chairman. A query, really. The additional funding the Welsh Government's put into supporting local authorities on CTRS, how much does Monmouthshire benefit from that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I'll certainly find out for you. If you'd have asked me that, I would have had the information available.
Thank you. Your fourth question, Councillor Batruni, is...
As stated, Chairman.
Thank you for your question, Dimitri. Thank you, Chairman. In 2014-15, MCC received 2,483 blue badge applications, of which 177, that's 7.1%, were refused. We issued 2,306 badges. Between the 1st of April and the 30th of September this year, MCC has received 1,369 applications and has refused 157, which is 11.4%. This does show there's been a 4.3% increase in refusal to date. It needs to be noted that the MCC refusals are for the discretionary blue badge applications. Some people, either because of certain conditions or the benefits they receive, automatically qualify. In February 2015, MCC, following best practice and guidance from Welsh Government, changed the way blue badge applications were processed. Previously, MCC received an application and would write to the GP, who would determine whether a blue badge should be issued. In 2012, Welsh Government initiated a blue badge improvement scheme which had the following aims, which was to reduce costs on health boards as they pay GPs for every blue badge assessment letter, create a system which would be fair and consistent across Wales, reduce demands on GPs, and aligning blue badge with the process utilised by the Department of Work and Pensions for the assessment on disability living allowance and personal independence payment. The application form is issued to the resident to fill in. If a resident needs help, then MCC Hub staff will sit down with them, or we can do it over the phone. The form will be checked for accuracy as certain documentation is required. The form is then marked against elements provided by Welsh Government. Each element has a point allocation, and to qualify for a badge, an applicant must be awarded more than 15 points. Of the 157 refusals to date, 93 are renewals and 64 are for new applications. It needs to be appreciated that blue badges are not just renewed automatically now. Each application is a new application. It is no longer assumed that previous qualification means you're eligible, as it is recognised that circumstances can change. The main reason, 142 out of 157, is that people have not met the 15 points total needed. As this is a new system, there's a programme of independent assessment to review the Council's decision. As this is still a new process, Welsh Government have recommended that we direct people to the assessor if they believe they could qualify, even though the initial assessment has not given them sufficient points. To date, we have proactively referred 47 people, and 38 of these have been given a badge. Welsh Government are taking advice from the assessors to determine if and how the toolkit could be improved. A further version of the toolkit is due out before the end of the year. To streamline the process and to reduce duplication, MCC does not review applications if people are in receipt of DWP benefits. For example, if they receive the higher rate of disability living allowance, they automatically qualify. If they get the lower rate, they're not eligible for a badge, and residents should not apply to MCC if they have been refused by the Department of Work and Pensions. Hopefully, the process should be consistent irrespective of the evaluating organisation. What we will not know, though, is how many are coming through to us if they've been refused completely by DWP. If they declare it, we will, but we do not routinely check with DWP on the applications they've received. If a resident was unhappy with the DWP decision, then their first recourse of application should be to ask DWP for a review. MCC continues to work proactively with Welsh Government on the refinement of this guidance. For example, we have recommended heart conditions should be included. We do appreciate that refusals appear to have increased this year, and will continue to monitor why this appears to be happening. At the moment, it appears that the implementation of the new system and the points criteria, we do appreciate for people who have applied, a refusal can be stressful, and sometimes engaging with the system can add to that stress. We will work sympathetically with applicants and will help them whenever possible and explain clearly why a certain decision has been taken. I'm sorry it was a very long-winded answer, but you asked the question.
Would you like a supplementary?
The supplementary was sort of answered, but I just want a bit more clarity on it. Referring to DWP refusals, I had a case, a constituent came to me, her son could not walk, physically could not walk, went through the DWP process and was deemed not suitable for a blue badge. It was the most ludicrous decision you've ever seen in your life. And you alluded to that we wouldn't be aware of how many are being affected through that process. Why not?
I can't answer that because I don't know the answer to that. So, but I can get you a written answer to that, and I'm surprised you didn't raise it when you had a meeting earlier in the week. Did. You did. Did you get an answer there? No. Oh.
Thank you, Councillor Petroni and Councillor Jones. Last question today is from County Councillor Francis Taylor to Councillor Peter Fox.
But not least, you meant to say there, Chair, didn't you? Yes. Thank you, Chair, for allowing the question. It is an extremely important and urgent matter, although I'd just like to say that things have moved on and we've begun to engage in dialogue with Post Office. However, the matter is by no means settled, and I would very much appreciate Councillor Fox's response, and I do hope that he will agree to write, because I think the situation would benefit a great deal from the Post Office understanding that Monmouthshire County Council is monitoring the situation and is supporting the community's campaign to retain their post office service at the current level. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Francis, for presenting this. And I'm pleased to note there's been some progress, and I know that's a lot of that's due to your good work and lobbying there. And you're quite right to bring this before our attention. You've got a large community, and very clearly the removal of a post office is a massive thing. In any community is a massive thing, but certainly in yours. And I know many thousands of people have written and supported you to retain this, and it looks like we've got some short-term resolve anyway. Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to work with Francis, and we can write appropriately to the relevant people to make sure there is some transparency in this system, and that we can make sure that our concerns are put to them, and we can take that watching brief. So a yes and yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Councillor Taylor.
No supplementary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for getting the meeting over fairly quickly. We'll make a note very much for who wasn't here today, I think.